All right, let's go to Tennessee and Osage, I guess the name is, right? Is the name Osage? Hello, Tennessee. Hello, Osage. Are you there, my friend? Well, let me try it again. Osage, are you there, buddy?
Yes, Art. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I thought we had lost you for a moment, but no, we have you. All right, so what's spooky in Tennessee?
Nothing. The story I have is actually whenever I was overseas in the military. First, I just want to say I'm a little nervous, so I apologize.
Oh, relax. So, in other words, it's like an alien ghost story.
Okay, yeah. I also want to give a shout out to Bill Gab, to all those guys out there.
The Belgab people, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
What do I call them? Vicious but vaguely lovable. That's really an apt description.
Yeah. Well, the story had to do whenever I was in the military. It was the 2002-2003. I was stationed overseas in Korea. I was at a Camp Stanley base, which is kind of far north. And
right.
And I
May I ask? Let me stop you. What is it like? You know, I've been to Korea any number of times, but being actually in the military and stationed in Korea. Well, put it this way: I've heard of our troops in Korea referred to in interesting ways, as though you're kind of there so that if the North starts a war, America's automatically brought into it. Is that how you guys looked at it there?
Kind of. I mean, well, you know, a lot of people don't know, I guess, that we were never actually, we signed a ceasefire. We never signed a peace treaty, so we were technically still at war.
That's correct.
And they stationed me there because I after the 9/11 happened, I wanted to combat. I thought I was going to go to Iraq, but instead they sent me to Korea instead. So
well, you darn near got some combat anyway. It got pretty tense there for a while.
Yeah, it did. We had riots and stuff outside our base, and they had an accident. It's kind of a long story what happened, but
all right, I'll let you get to it. Don't worry. Every year, a whole bunch of South Koreans get together in like almost a mob, and they march on the gate. Going north, and I always thought, what is that about? These guys are down in South Korea where they have freedoms and relative good life. The economy's in great shape, and Korea's just booming, and yet they march on the North Gate. I always thought, what they should have done one year is just open the damn gate, let them march on north, and close it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that the public doesn't hear about. The reason why they were rioting on our base was because we had an accident where two girls were actually ran over by one of our tracked vehicles. And I'm sure you can look about it on the internet, but they were pretty bad. They were actually throwing the Molotov cocktail bombs over the fences, and we had some buildings catch on fire.
Brother.
But yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, I don't want to stop you from your story. Proceed, please.
Okay. Well, during the end of my time, I was usually when everybody does their last 3 months, they try to keep them on light duty so that they don't get injured, because if they get injured, it causes complications. So they put me on the unit police, which anybody who's been on a base over there knows what a UP is. It's kind of like NP, only you're a security guard, I guess you could say.
Yeah, in the Air Force we call them APs, but yeah.
Yeah. So basically I would be in charge of the gates, and they would rotate us around the different gates. And I always liked the night shift because I'm just kind of a night person, Oh. And so they picked me to work on this gate, which I actually worked there whenever I was doing my time up in the upper part. It's called we call it the AHA, which is the ammo holding area.
Right.
And up there that's where the last line of defense, I guess you could say, for artillery. The North Koreans had their artillery focused on us, and the only thing we could do is store ammo inside the mountain and in a big tunnel. So to get to that tunnel, you had to go through the gate, and that was the gate that I was stationed at in charge of. Mm-hmm. So during the night shift, well, first I want to say that place had a reputation already. The people there, the Koreans, I've heard them talking before, and I remember one time early on when I first came there, I asked them what they were talking about, and the Korean guy told me, kind of laughed it off. He said, "Well, they were talking about how that place is haunted," and this was during the daytime. I really didn't understand, what it was about. But I found out later that during a safety briefing we had that there was a soldier that was killed there in the area, and it was pretty gruesome. He died when he was airing up a tire, and a split ring came off and killed him.
Ooh, ow.
Yeah, and it was probably instant death, but it was in the area that I worked, in the area,
Right.
So, anyways, I would work there at night shift, and things were pretty calm. Nothing really happened. It was me and another person at all times. And we really didn't have anything happen. I mean, we had cameras there, and it was really quiet. And one night when we were up there, one of the vehicles, and these are HEMTTs, these are pretty big vehicles, it just started on its own. And first we heard the rumble, and we didn't know what it was. So we got up, we went outside the door, and I could hear it running. And we looked at each other, and that's when it really kind of got spooky, because I worked those machines, and I know that we don't have those malfunction and just cut on their own.
Right. That's bad to start the story off. A vehicle starting by itself is not good at all.
Yeah. Well, it kind of spooked both of us out, and I decided to go because I knew those vehicles to begin with, so he stayed in the guard shack that we had, and I went over there to the vehicle. And first of all, I was really creeped out because it was in the dark area, so I had to kind of walk in the dark, and I looked around the vehicle, and I didn't see anything at all. So I opened the cab up, and I cut the vehicle off, and then went on our way, and we just noted it in the log. Anyway, so that was the first time something had happened, and we had similar incidences with other people where the lights had cut on. People had noted in the logs about similar incidents like us. Now, I don't know if they took it serious or not, because I don't think maybe nobody read the logs, because that place clearly had something going on. But later on, I guess it was maybe like a week or so, or maybe 2 weeks later, the horn on one of the HEMTTs, and I mean, almost, I think it was the same one. It might not have been, but it was in the same area, started just going off on its own. And this is maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the night, and we're both in there, and it goes off, and we're just nearly jump out of our seats and fall down, because it scared the crap out of both of us,
By this time, I'd be worried that thing would start up and head toward me.
Yeah, I was actually so scared, I made the other guard get out and go with me, which we're not supposed to do, because someone's supposed to be at the gate.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I actually had to go up there and undo the chain, and it was just really weird. I don't understand how that could happen. I mean, I don't know. If you think about ghosts, if ghosts are real, how can they influence real things? I don't know, but I do know that a guy did die there. And
I guess your story kind of says they can.
Yeah. Well, it's just too weird. Yeah.
I really appreciate your story. Thank you very much. Yeah, a vehicle does not start itself. A vehicle does not suddenly start, especially if it's the same one, begin blowing its own horn, so to speak. So there you have it, a story all the way from Korea. And when you think about it, hauntings certainly would not be exclusive to any one area. They would be all over the world. And guess what? They are. Ghost stories are as famous in Japan and Germany and every other country in the world as they are here. In other words, ghosts are universal. Let's go to right here in Nevada, and John. John, welcome to Spooky Matter. Hello, John.
Yeah. Good morning, Art. Mega Roswell's.
Not morning yet, not even on the East Coast, but
Yeah, not
hey
really. Great to talk to you.
good to talk to you, too.
Yeah,
And so you've got a story for us, I take it?
Yes, I bought a house out in Eldridge, Iowa, and I only lived in it 14 months. I worked for Caterpillar, and they closed the plant, so I moved out of Iowa and moved out west here. And we were moving in, and I had just put a 9-drawer dresser into the one bedroom that was going to be my daughter's bedroom. And me and my son, he's 15, carried it in there and put it in. And I went out to the kitchen to grab a cup of coffee, and I come back to the room, and I couldn't open the door. And the dresser had slid in front of the door. At first, I thought my son was in there.
What? The dresser slid in front of... Now, was somebody in the room or no?
No one was in the room.
A 9-drawer dresser, that's big,
Right. Yeah.
moved itself in front of the door.
Yeah. And I
man.
thought my son was in the room doing something, and
Sure, of course, yes.
And I turn around and I'm hollering through the door. I said, "Open this up. I want to get this other stuff in there." And then he comes in out from the front door with another box of stuff, and I'm going, "Well, who's in here?" So anyway, I had to pry the door open and slide that dresser out of the way to get back into a room that was empty.
Well, that's just plain impossible.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. And, me and my wife sat down, had a cup of coffee, and you just bought the house. What do you do?
I know. I'll tell you, I think what I would have done, did you buy from an individual or a realtor or what?
No, I was a realtor. But I knew
realtor.
the guy that had lived there before, and he had never said anything about the house. I mean, I had worked with him at CAP.
Yeah, no reports of ghosts, right?
No. And it was a very strange thing. And my dog would never go in that room. We sat there and decided, well, this is pretty strange. So she said, well, it's not going to be my daughter's bedroom. She says, that's going to be your poker room then. And so,
so is that what
I moved
it was?
my dresser and the daughter into the other room. So all I put in there was my poker table and stereo,
How
But,
did you do at poker after that?
Not real well in that room.
That's just well, I love the story because it's impossible.
Yeah, and you sit there and you look at yourself. And, I was looking at my wife and going, "Did this really just happen? I mean, did I have to pry this door open to get in here?" And it's like,
it's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible.
Happened any other way? But,
no, it couldn't have. I really appreciate your story, and that's 2 stories in a row.
Well, I wanted to mention one other thing. I had moved back to Iowa. My dad had Alzheimer's and stuff, and I was driving down the street, and I saw they had an open house at that house. And I was telling my girlfriend, I said, I used to own this place, and
Right.
I said, let's go in and take a look, and
Yes.
I'm talking to the realtor. I did want to check. There was a little cheap little under-the-counter kitchen light that I'd put in when I bought the place, and it was still there. But I talked to the realtor, and she said that house had sold 7 times since I had it. And
7
so
times?
nobody ever stayed very long in it. I don't know if anybody else had trouble or not. But
Did you tell the realtor about
yeah,
what you just told me? Oh,
yeah. She says, I don't want to hear any more. She says, I got to be here all afternoon.
I completely understand. And you know what? Despite the laws that say, now anyway, that you have to tell somebody if a house is haunted, if it was sold, bought and sold 7 times.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody ever
period?
mentioned it.
Yeah,
this was, let's see, I bought it in, I think it was 82, and then I left in 83 when they closed the plant, and I moved back there in 2005. So it had sold 7 or 8 times between then, so I don't know.
Right.
Very strange story.
All right, thank you very much, my friend. Listen, second one in a row of, how can I put this? Things being moved um, without human interaction or things being moved by a spirit. A vehicle started, a horn that goes, probably on the same vehicle, and now the real impossibility. I'm not sure I'd move into a house like that if something like that happened. I mean, after all, if anybody had moved that 9-drawer dresser up to the door and blocked it, they would then have to still be in that room unless they went sailing through a window. And he said his son was still outside. So that means something that we don't understand moved that thing. And I guess the message would be, not this room. And obviously, Mom understood that message because she did not allow the daughter in there. Jason in Louisiana, hi there, and thank you for coming on the air.
Hello, Art. Mega Roswell.
Thank you.
This is such
You
an
have
honor.
a ghost story for us, I take it.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
This is a story about when my wife and I were newlyweds, and as newlyweds kind of do around that time, they'll go visit their parents, once a week or so. And my wife said she was going to go visit her mother. I said, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and just stay home. I'm in my pajamas. And about 40 minutes later, she came back and she said, you're not going to believe what happened to me on the ride home. And being the foolish young husband, I said, that sounds great, honey, but let me go ahead and just finish up this video game that I'm playing right now. And so that frustrated her.
You're already like a husband. You're already like a husband of about 10 years. Not a newlywed. A newlywed jumps up.
I was in hot water.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So she was a little frustrated, and it wasn't until the next day that I was able to get her to tell me what happened. Apparently, on the ride home, she had just left her mom's home, and she got the feeling that you get when you're being watched. And she looked off to her left, and she saw the classic shadow figure staring at her. And
no, excuse me. This was when she was driving?
Yes, sir.
And this shadow person or whatever was moving by itself and keeping pace?
No, it was standing behind a sapling, which she thought she saw a tree out of the corner of her eye. And when she looked, there was a sapling, and the shadow figure was behind it, standing behind it. And as she drove past, its head followed her. She got the chills, and she picked up, she sped up a little bit down the neighborhood. And as she made her way to the end of the neighborhood, the lights, starting where the creature was, started going out one at a time until it reached her. And once the lights reached her, she stopped. And that classic fight or flight kicked in, and she got mad. She was angry. She was scared, but she was angry. So she threw it in reverse, and she rushed back to the point where the creature was, and nothing was there. It was just a sapling, and she had a cold sweat, and she was just sitting there, and the car was idling, and all the lights turned on at once. And
you sir have a wife with cojones. Let me tell you, I would not have.
I know.
Yeah, that's right. I would not have gone back. There's no way I would have gone back. So she must be a tough one.
The first time, she is a tough cookie. I'm not afraid to go out in public. She's got my back.
All right, my friend. Thank you for the story. No, thank you. I guess, insert myself into the stories as I hear them, and it's kind of like, what would I do? It would be bad enough. You see the shadow being behind the tree. You see the head pop up, and the head follows you, and then the lights start going out. Would I go back? No. I'm being honest with you. No, I would not go back. So, big cojones. Down to Texas and Chris. Hey, Chris.
Roswell's Mr. Bell.
Thank you, sir.
I'm glad to finally get in to talk to you. Since the first time I heard you, you're talking to Mel Waters.
Mel's Hole.
Yes, I've been a fan ever since.
The story goes that Mel sold his hole to the selling his hole. He sold his hole to the government and moved to Australia, where he's living presumably happily ever after. But I'd sure love to talk to Mel. Anyway, proceed.
Yes, sir. 25 years ago, I was a brand new Border Patrol agent. We had more trainees than journeymen, so they would stick two trainees together and say, go do your job. And usual shift, there might be 4 people working. So we had 2 guys upriver, myself and my partner downriver. Very little experience between the 2 of us.
What would you see? I hate this, but I have to know some things.
Yes, sir.
As a Border Patrol agent, you said with very little training. So it's like they send you to the, when you say river, the Rio Grande?
Yes, sir. Not so
they
much
send you down to the
training,
Rio Grande and they say, watch?
It was very little experience, not training. I may have misspoke there.
Okay.
We had just gotten from the academy, but neither of us had a half a year in yet.
Okay.
So they send us down. They tell us to go fight crime midnights. So we're driving down the river looking for anything that we could see that didn't look right, not really knowing what we were doing, but trying to get on to job experience. We see a bonfire out on this hill that we used to refer to as the party house. It was, at the time, it was out of town quite a ways, but now it's almost in town. And we drove towards it thinking, well, maybe somebody's down there, maybe some aliens, maybe some smuggling.
Right.
And at the time, we had switches that we could throw that would turn all the lights off in the vehicle. So if you hit the brakes or the backup light, nothing would come on. It wouldn't show where the vehicle was.
Sure.
So we turn out all the lights. We're driving down this long dirt road towards the river. And as we come around a corner, there's about 15 or 20 people standing in a huge circle around a giant bonfire. They're all wearing brown, full-length robes. They got their hands up in the air like they're doing some kind of religious ceremony.
Ritual.
Yes. I saw a movie called Race with the Devil with Peter Fonda and Warren Oates several years before this, and that movie came to mind. I looked at these people just in time to see 2 of them turn towards us and start running at us in a not an aggressive manner, but like we didn't have any business in their little ritual.
Oh, I'm sure you didn't. It was on. This is on the U.S. side of the border, of course, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay.
about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Gotcha. And 2 of them start running toward you, and you were, I'm sure, 2 armed.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But they were armed in Race with the Devil too.
Oh.
Well.
So what do you guys, you 2 armed guys, do?
I looked at my partner. He looked at me. I threw it in reverse and I hit the gas.
I
said,
guy.
I don't see any immigration violation happening here. I went backwards with no lights. I made a 90-degree turn, and I didn't slow down until I hit the highway.
I'm with you all the way.
Once we get to the highway, we're trying to decide what to do because our nearest backup is a good 20, 30 minutes away.
Right.
There's one sheriff's deputy, and he's way the heck out of town.
Right.
So who would you report this to? They didn't cover this at the academy.
No. Local law enforcement? I don't know.
Well, we're out of town. We were in the county, and like I said, there was one deputy working, and he was way the heck out of town. And we discussed it the rest of the night. Who should we report this to? And we could not come to a conclusion. So at 8
Nor
o'clock
were they
in the morning,
necessarily breaking the law, really.
None that I could see.
So maybe God's law.
Well, we decided that we just weren't going to tell anybody, and we're going to try and pretend like it never happened.
I don't blame you at all.
We've managed to keep our mouths shut for about a good 20 years. Well, finally, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was invited to tell my story on the other show. And unfortunately, the night that they called the house for me to talk, I had a schedule change and I had to work that night.
So you never got to tell the story?
Not to them, but it really upset me because I've listened to that show, like I said, ever since Mel was whole. So a couple of weeks go by and I'm teaching a class. And I mentioned to the class that I'd almost made it on the radio. And I told them this story about what had happened to me and my partner and how it would have been neat to tell people I'd managed to tell my story to the entire United States and parts of the planet. And one of the students said, hey, you know, about a couple of years ago, I was driving around down by the river and I came across the exact same situation.
Oh?
Yeah, so apparently whoever these people are, they're still out there. They're still doing their little ritual. And I have no idea who they are or what they're doing.
And this person, this student, what did he do?
Exact same thing.
As you did. And as I would have done as well. I really, really appreciate your telling this story on Real Radio.
It was an exciting night.
Thank you, my friend, and take care. Glad you came by tonight for Spooky Matter. I love stories like this. What do you suppose that was? Probably not ghosts. But also, on the other hand, probably not a group of people that you would want to upset, armed or not. Fascinating. Ben in California. Hi, Ben.
Hey, is this me?
It is you, Ben.
Hey, Roswell's.
Thank you.
I've actually called in and told you my ghost stories before, but I've got one more story I haven't told you.
You've told me ghost stories before?
I called in on open lines night, and I was the guy that had been physically assaulted by a ghost.
Okay.
But I've got one story that I don't know if it's ghost or not, but it definitely qualifies as spooky.
All right.
I'm living in eastern Kentucky, growing up on this haunted hill.
Mm-hmm.
And besides the neighborhood there is a dirt road. It's a gas road. There's gas wells out there. And this is where we rode our dirt bikes and four-wheelers and everything like that.
Right.
So nobody ever walks out there, but I didn't have any gas for my dirt bike one day, so I decided to take a walk out there. I'm about 15 years old. I think I'm a freshman in high school. And I'm walking back. I've got my machete on my side. I'm looking for snakes and whatnot, looking for deer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking around, and then suddenly there's two men in front of me. And this is a straight stretch of, I would say, 200-300 yards. And suddenly they're about 20 feet in front of me. So I tell them, well, you scared the you-know-what out of me. And one of the men says, well, I'm sorry. And they walk up to me, and they ask me questions like, how did you get out here? And I told them, well, I just live half a mile from here. And they say, they're just very confused. They say, how did you get past the gate?
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, there is no gate. There used to be a gate there, but it had been ripped out a couple of years ago.
Right.
And keep in mind, this is the only entrance for miles. This road runs for miles and miles, and a few miles the other way, there's another entrance, and it doesn't have a gate either. So anyway, that's a really weird question. And the direction they were coming from the direction of my house, and there's only one way in, one way out. And I'm thinking they should know there's not a gate there. So anyway, the whole time I'm talking to them, I'm really creeped out. I'm really freaked out. They're staring directly at my eyes, and they're not looking anywhere else. I'm motioning to my house. I say I'm out here with my machete. I'm looking for snakes. They don't look at my machete. They're both just still fixed on my eyes.
They're not even concerned with your machete? I mean, when somebody says, I'm out here with my machete, that gets somebody's attention, you would think. You look down. Ooh, big knife.
Yeah, you would think so, and be slightly interested. But only one of the men's talking to me, but both of them are looking directly in my eyes.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm freaked out. So well, I gotta go because I never really see anybody out there unless they're riding a motorcycle or a dirt bike or a four wheeler. But I start walking back towards my house. We cross paths, and of course I'm scared, nervous. And within a few feet, I take a few steps and I turn around. They're not there.
as in disappeared.
As in they are gone.
Well, maybe they vanished back into a time when there was a gate.
Yeah. Say that gate hadn't been there in a couple of years, and I don't really know what that was about. But I start walking fast. I'm really nervous now. My heart's racing. I'm panting, and I'm walking fast. And I turn back. They're still not there. There's nowhere for them to hide, but they're not there. So I'm convinced that something bad's about to happen. So I'm running back to my house, and I reach the road again, and there's not a work truck there. There's nothing there. So I make it home. I run to the house. I slam the door, lock the door, tell my mom somebody's coming to kill me. 2 men are trying to kill me. And sat there freaked out for the rest of the day. So I didn't tell that story because I didn't know if it's a ghost story or not, but it was definitely.
Well, it is. All right. Thank you very much. I'm not sure what to call that story, but these odd things do happen. Yeah, and I understand. Sometimes you don't say it was a ghost. I kind of like my guess, actually. They asked about a gate that hadn't been there in a long, long time in a very weird way. And I'm guessing they went back to whatever it was, time-wise, when that gate was there. I could be wrong. It's just a guess. Now let's go to... these are your stories, Illinois, and Larry. Hi, Larry.
Hello, Art. Roswell's.
Thank you.
And I hope Asia comes back with a whole sack full of goodies for Daddy.
Oh, she will, and she'll hide them before I get home.
That's when you get into your daddy experiences, and surely you know where at least half the hiding spots are.
Well, usually she knows I grab the candy and run around the house with her chasing me. That's how it usually works out.
That's Daddy's job.
Anyway, you have a story for us.
Yes, sir, I do. Picture it. You're a corrections officer.
Uh-huh.
Working a midnight shift. And at the beginning of each shift, doesn't make any difference which one of the three, you send your officers out to do an external a perimeter check of the sensors on the fence and make sure everything's where it's supposed to be and working.
I don't need any names, but I mean, is this a pretty good sized prison or a jail, or what are we talking about?
This is a state institution.
Okay, big one, yes, sir.
Male, pretty good size. We was generally we run around with about a population of about 2,350.
Oh, big one. Okay.
Yeah, pretty good size. And I was a zone sergeant, and my officers automatically, went out and done their duties. We done an external perimeter check and an internal perimeter check.
Sure.
And the internal perimeter check not only included the inside fence, but also making sure that the doors and windows and everything was secured on the buildings.
Right.
And part of the institution was handed over from the Department of Mental Health.
Mm.
And this one particular building, which was right across a service road from another old mental health building that had inmates in it.
Mm-hmm.
But the building in question did not. It was not inhabited. And down on the basement level, there was it's still there, an extremely heavy steel fire door. Mm. And there for about at least twice a week, for about 6 weeks, we would find this door open.
The fire door.
A fire door. And
How did an alarm go off? I would think it would be connected.
there's no alarms. This building was built about 1910.
Okay, gotcha.
And my officer that was doing the inspection reported to me that he found this door open, and these are all deadbolts.
Oh.
And so we find doors open, not real frequent, but from time to time, somebody would leave the building, on the evening shift if they had a class or something in there and failed to secure their door. But this building nothing was going on in there.
Right.
And the problem is that to secure this door, no personnel whatsoever inside our perimeter has a key to that door. You have to go to the communications room where we were issued our keys and our radios and get this one specific key, which took the authorization of the shift commander. And you had to
and again, this door is normally always dead bolted.
Yes.
Okay.
We had keys to all the other doors in that building except that one particular door.
Right.
Nobody inside the perimeter had that key. Well, I had to get authorization from the captain to get the key in writing, and naturally he wanted to know why. Well, to keep the sergeant that I relieved, keep him out of trouble, I just told the captain that I wanted to do a security check.
Mm-hmm.
So, fine. So, got it. We went in. Me and 4 of my officers, we went in, done an inspection, and the place was empty. And we secured the door. And I reported back to the captain, no results, everything's fine.
Right.
And then the next day when I come in, I talked to the sergeant that was in charge on the evening shift, told him what I found. And he said, "Did you put it in writing?" I said, "No, I don't think there's any need for that. Ain't no sense of getting a whole bunch of other people involved in this."
Right.
So he said, "Okay, I appreciate it." He said, "Was on the evening shift. They done 2 inspections, and one of them was right around 10 o'clock at night, while everybody else was performing a count. They'd go around and do their same inspections as when they come on
Yes.
shift."
Right.
Well, this went on for about 6 weeks, and we kept.
No, wait a minute. You're saying this door was open every night?
At least twice a week.
At least twice a week. Oh my. Okay.
And I'd still have to go up there and to the comm room, call the captain, get authorization. Well, by this, after about 3 or 4 weeks, he's starting to get really curious as to why I keep wanting to go in there.
Well, sure.
Especially, with that particular key, because I got keys to every other door in that building, and it was a pretty good-sized building.
Right.
So after about 6 weeks, it was getting pretty old, and me and my 4 officers, we went in, done our inspection. Well, this time the captain called an emergency count. And this is about 3 o'clock in the morning. And while they're counting, we're going in there and looking around. Didn't find anything. Secured the door. And as we were leaving, we're going down a little service road in between these 2 buildings. And not a whole lot of light back in that area. A few security lights on the buildings, but the main lights was from the perimeter lights around the fence. And I happened to turn around and looked up on the second floor window at the end of the wing, and I seen a little girl about 8 to 10 years old, blonde hair, and I just told my other officers, "Hey, come here." So I said, look up there. What do you see? And all their jaws went slack and their eyes got about as big as silver dollars. I said, what did you see? He said, do you see a little girl? They all went, uh-huh. And about that time, she raised up her right hand and waved at us. And never seen her again. Never had any more problems with that door. Needless to say, that did not go on our reports.
No, I wonder what her connection to that door was. Maybe
there was an old mental health building, because part of our institution, especially we had two sides, and the side that I was on, we had about a half a dozen of these old mental health buildings. You know, like I said, built around 1910, 1908.
No, I got it. Maybe she had a dad or a mom that had been in that building.
Well, there was children there too.
Children too?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, because a few of my officers worked in there for mental health when it was still in operation. And
all right. Well, all right. Well, you've given us, thank you very much, another story of, in my opinion, something that's been something physical that has been manipulated by something else. All the stories that we've had so far virtually have involved things physical moved by things not physical. 6 weeks of a deadbolt opening? Well, I guess we'll just have to all wonder what's up with that. Strange. New York. Back to New York and Franklin. Hello.
Hey, Art. How are you?
Just fine, thank
Happy
you.
Halloween. This story takes place when my fiancée Gina and I were living in Boston. We lived there in this building for about 2 or 3 years while I was in grad school. And about a month before we were leaving to move back to Brooklyn, we had the apartment packed up and everything, and we're asleep. I'm laying in bed, and I feel someone above me just looking at me. And I'm like, in my head, I'm saying to myself, all right, if you're there, you might not want to be there when I open my eyes. And I'm just kind of joking, I'm not thinking anything of it. As soon as I say this to myself, I feel a gust of wind shoot to my left. And now I open my eyes and I sit up immediately. And I'm like, what is this? I look over, and there is a man in our doorway, colonial dressed, long, stringy hair, bifocals, like a tall, thin Benjamin Franklin, okay?
Right.
Now, the man is illuminated. The only light that we have in our apartment is the bathroom door behind him that's slightly ajar. He is producing his own light, but his light doesn't reflect onto my door, my floor, my walls, nothing. All right? And he's slightly translucent because I can kind of see the bathroom light through him. Now, this man is looking at us with curiosity. No malice, no nothing. I'm just staring at him with curiosity. I touch my girlfriend, and she wakes up, and she looks at the door, and she says, "Who's the man in white? Who's the man in white at the door?" Huh. At that point, I really get freaked out because it was like confirmation. I turn to her. She goes back to sleep. I turn to him, and he's gone.
Oof.
Yeah. I wake her up. She tells me exactly what she saw. It was exactly what I saw. She goes back to sleep. I could not go back to sleep for the rest of the night.
I hear you, buddy. Thank you so very much for that story. Now, isn't that interesting? In other words, it may well be that many times the apparition, or ghost, if you will, is every bit as surprised at being in another place, or time than it was used to. So it is as absolutely curious, perhaps even terrified, as you are. And I wonder what that says about the other side. The mixing of that side and this side on some occasions. It may well be that they have absolutely no more of an idea than you do. Think about it. Let's go to Minnesota and Allison. Hi, Allison.
Well, good evening, Art, and happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Well, my story I have a story that actually does involve things being moved without me moving them, but the story that I believe you were most intrigued in is my story of the time I saw a shadow person. And this story goes back about 15 years. I was 9-10 years old at the time, and I was downstairs. We lived in my grandma's house at the time, and we lived in her basement. And this particular night, my mom had left to go grocery shopping, but my bedroom was in the basement right next to the stairwell. So the only way to get in and out of the basement is on these very, very creaky stairs. If anyone were to come downstairs, including our very fat cat, I would know about it. So I'm reading my book for school that night, and I'm sitting on my bed, and the setup of this basement was very odd. It was my room had two doors, one that went to the stairwell, and then another one that went into a very oblong bathroom that was connected on the other side of this bathroom to our living room. And right by the doorway to the living room, there was a desk, and my mom had a light on that, and she left it on for me so that I wouldn't get scared while she was gone, even though my grandma was upstairs watching TV. So I'm reading this book, and the way I'm sitting on my bed, I can see through the bathroom and then into the living room, and I can see the light is pretty much framed by the little slit of the door that I can see through. And I don't know what compelled me to look up, but I look up over my book into the living room, and as I do so, a 6.5 to 7 foot tall, pitch black shadow. I could see, the only definition it had was I could see shoulders, I could see a head, and I could see that it was wearing a bowler hat, of all things. And it didn't bob up and down as people do when they walk. It glided behind this desk from the living room into my mom's room and was gone. And I promptly threw my book across the room, opened the door to the stairwell, and ran upstairs and told my grandma. And she, of course, didn't believe me. Oh, that's silly. But this house, only my mom and I had just handfuls of experiences in this house. So she believed me when I got home. But the part that scared me the most about that shadow person is that it had to have walked a foot or two behind this lamp that was very bright, and it did not cast a shadow on the back wall behind it. It did not have any light reflect off it. It was like a cutout of reality. There was just blackness.
And then this entity, you were seeing it full on, straight on with your vision, right? Not peripheral vision, straight on.
Absolutely straight on. I watched it go by and sat there and realized what I'd seen for a second before I turned tail and ran. There was really no malice to anything that happened in that house. It actually, in a weird way, helped me out one time, but it's still such an abnormal thing to see. I just couldn't deal with it, and I ran away.
Oh, I would have too. My kind of gal. All right. Well, listen, thank you for the story. It's a good one.
You're very welcome.
Take care. Thank you. My kind of gal. I mean, I'm being honest with you. If I saw a creature like that, I don't know about you. Perhaps all the rest of you are considering along with me. But if I saw a creature like that, so-called shadow person, straight on, and then it floated across the floor, I would be so gone. Let's go to Andrew all the way down in Melbourne, Australia. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Art. How are you?
Quite well. And I presume you have a ghost story for us.
I do. It's the story involves my daughter's imaginary friend.
Okay.
For a number of years, my daughter had an imaginary friend that she described as a tall, old man that she named Roger. And it was one of those textbook imaginary friends where she would talk with him, play with him, have tea parties with him, and, sometimes even blame him for things. And, my wife and I would fully see her have conversations with, like, an unseen person. And, my wife did a research and she just chalked it up to an overactive imagination. For my daughter at the time was an only child. And we basically thought that, the behavior was perfectly normal and age appropriate.
You know what, though? It's still creepy. If you watch a child talking to somebody that's not there and even apparently getting answers, it's pretty creepy.
It's very creepy. And so my wife thought it was normal, but me having graduated from the Art Bell School of Ghost to Ghost and other paranormal shows, I always suspected that she may have been talking to a ghost. Having said that, we never had any paranormal activity in the house. We never saw apparitions or disembodied voices or red eyes in the closet. None of that. One thing happened that did freak me out is one day my daughter told me that Roger didn't like me. And that sort of made the hair on the back of my neck sort of stand up. And I said to her, why doesn't Roger like me? I'm a very likable guy. And she said, Roger doesn't like it when you throw cigarettes in his garden. Ooh. And my daughter did not know that I smoked cigarettes when she was born. I I cut down. I would only smoke when I was at work or late at night when she was in bed. But I would go outside, I'd light up, have my cigarette, and then throw the butt in the garden. And I guess Roger wasn't very fond of my habits.
Oh, Andy, that's so creepy.
It is.
All right. Thank you very, very much. That is a creepy story. It really is. Can you imagine being told not to do something by your daughter who could not possibly have known that you were doing it? Oh, boy, that's creepy. All right, it's about that time. We'll pause here. No, wait a minute. I already did that, didn't I? Let's do this. There you go. Let's pause. It's Spooky Matter on Halloween night. It's solidly dark here now on the West Coast, as it should be. Good evening, everyone.
I recently moved out to my family farm in East Texas, and as part of that, I joined the volunteer fire department out here. Mm-hmm. And that amounted to me showing up at a meeting on Thursday, getting voted in. They sent me home with a radio and pager. Well, on Saturday night, 2 days later, the pager goes off, and I'm the first one to the station. The chief and I take a truck out to this accident. It's a rollover. The car's has died, but the radio's playing, and I walk up, look in, there's a guy kind of crumpled up in the passenger seat of the car because it's laying on its side. He's dead, yeah. And, we were there for an hour. We had to wait for the police to come out, do their investigation, and the coroner and so forth. We cut the roof off of the truck, and he fell out, and a couple beer cans came out, so he was drinking. There were people behind him. He wasn't going that fast, just kind of swerved, went off the road and smacked into a tree, and it cost him his life.
Right.
But, while I was there, I could kind of sense that he was around. He was still there, and I could feel him, and I remember feeling sorry for him. Like this guy, didn't know that his life was coming to an end, at least this one anyway.
That's right. But you sensed he was right there. I would look over across the road a little ways back from the accident, and I didn't see him, I didn't hear anything, but I could feel that. I think this guy's standing there just looking at everything going on in bewilderment, and I felt like all of the other officers probably looked down on this guy because he was drinking and caused his fatal accident. Mm-hmm.
So we wrap up there, go back to the fire station, put the truck up. I drive my car back to the farm, which usually has other family members on it, but they were all in Dallas for a family event. And I get back to my house, and I can feel this guy with me still. I think he followed me home from the accident.
Maybe he sensed that you identified with him in a positive way. You felt sorry.
I think he could maybe hear my thoughts or feel my emotions, or somehow was perceptive to that.
Sure.
But it creeped me out. I was just scared half to death because, this guy is here following me home, and I don't know how to help him. And eventually I said that out loud. I'm like, I don't know how to help you. I'm sorry. And this went on for about 30 minutes. And I remember thinking, boy, I wish my mom was here or somebody else was here on the farm. and I thought about them all being in Dallas.
Right.
And eventually it went away. And about 30 minutes after that, I get a phone call from my mom, and she said her aunt heard the phone ringing, brought the phone into her, and she called me back. This was like at 1 a.m. And she said, "Hey, you just called. I was calling you back." And I'm like, "What do you mean? I didn't make any phone call. What's the number from?" Well, the number she gave me was my cell phone. And I had just moved out here, and my cell phone gets no bars. It says no service on it. So I couldn't even place the call. And the landline from the house doesn't have long distance, and her number is a Dallas number. So there's no way I could have called her.
Oh,
and
my
so
goodness.
I think this guy, or one of the guardian angels that took him away or whatever, sort of placed this call to put me at ease.
That's a cool story.
Isn't that
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes, of course it is. Thank you so very much. Wow. See, these things, they do happen. That one from Texas, and I so appreciate it. I think that the dead, let me correct that. It is my firm belief that the recently dead do not depart right away. They're still there for a while. Not a long time, perhaps days, perhaps hours, perhaps days, but I firmly believe that they do stick around for a while. Let's move to, let's move to Colorado and Francisco. Hello there.
Hi, how you doing, Art?
Very well, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start off my story. It starts off, met a good friend in a Lutheran high school. Very, I guess, better way to put it, it's kind of a uptight religious school.
Right.
They would teach us, Bible verses. We'd go to Bible classes. None of that to me. I mean, I was already, born and raised in the church. However, this friend that I met, he really was there for other reasons. And I tried to, I guess, talk to him about religion from time to time, and kind of blew it off. He was like, "Well, why don't you come with me over to my house?" He's like, "This is what my mom and I kind of do on our separate time." So we go over there, and it has a real nice house, a lot of ornate, old collectible type of items. And one of the items that she has in this big open garden room area is a Ouija board. So he convinces me, which going against everything that my mom had told me, don't you mess with that stuff because something could attach to you. It could follow you back if it wants to. Just leave it alone. Well, being a teenager, I was like, let me try it. So we gave it a shot, and got some interesting responses. And I was like, okay, I've got to try it. That's that. So fast forward now, we're in our late 20s. I'm in school, and I had just left college to move back in with my mom to help her with my grandmother. She was suffering dementia at the time, and my friend calls us up. It's about maybe 3:30 in the morning, December, so it's cold, snowing, and I could just hear on the other room, he's just crying hysterically, and I get up, kind of, confused in the daze, asking, what's going on, and she says, he needs our help. We need to go to his house now. Grab your things, let's go. And he lived, a few miles away. Mm-hmm. We get to his house, and he's standing outside in the snow with no shoes on, with just an undershirt and a pair of jeans, and immediately gets in the car, starts crying again. I mean, just shaking uncontrollably, probably from being cold and being scared. And as he starts to calm down, we ask him, what's going on? What happened in there? And he said, I came home, hanging out with some friends. He's like, and I smelled this awful smell, almost like sulfur. He's like, I paid no mind to it. I looked around the house. He's like, it's not until I came to my living room that I seen a man sitting on my couch. The man was very, I guess in his terms, he said the man was very good looking, very well kept. my friend had a dog, a big Rottweiler, and his Rottweiler, instead of barking, going crazy, wanting to attack this guy, sat right next to the man. The man kind of just was stroking the dog. He said when he looked at his eyes, that his eyes were gray. There was no pupil, there was no white, that they were just completely grayed over. And I don't know if it was some type of, there was no verbal communication, he said, but the look, and maybe, not in his words, but maybe some type of, the thoughts, he felt his thoughts were being read by this being.
Right.
He said he just felt like his soul was being taken from him, and that this being knew that I have you right where I want you. When we had got to the house, like I said, he had already, in order for him to have gotten out of the house, I should have explained a little bit better, he had to break the window out of his bedroom. So my mom and I are like, do you have a key to get back in? The sun's starting to come up, like, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And we're all like, we really don't want to go in there, but let's go in there. So we finally make our way to his house, and the house is a wreck. Cupboards are basically torn off hinges. Food and dish plates are scattered all over the kitchen floor. There was even dog vomit in the living room, in multiple areas of the house.
Sounds awful, yeah.
It was, like I said, I was born and raised in the church, and, nowadays, too many people, they want to recognize the good and not also that there is evil out there.
Yes, sir.
This certainly opened my eyes to it, because seeing what I saw and sensed what I sensed, and just the atmosphere was heavy, that as walking in that house and just knowing that, why would my friend go to extremes to break a window in order to get out of his own home?
Because he was terrified.
Yeah, he truly was.
Absolutely terrified. Did he say anything about how everything got broken?
No, he said once he felt that, as I was explaining, he felt like just a part of him or a part of his soul was just being taken by this entity. And he still, to this day, says it was the devil. But he says once he started feeling that awful feeling, he rushed to the front door. The door knob wouldn't budge. It wouldn't open, nothing. So that's why he decided to break out his bedroom window. It was everyone who I told this story after that, or familiar with my friend, they were shaken. I mean, and just terrified to think, like, that is something else. So we had that same day, we called some priests over to come and bless the house. And even the priests they had a look to them that maybe there really was something here that we can't explain. And during the prayer, my friend, the one who went through all this, he straight fainted on the floor. So I don't know if it was a possession and he was making that up, let's just say, but whatever happened, something happened.
Well, thank you very much. I don't think anybody makes up breaking out a window of your own house. Not for a second. The rest of it, I don't know, as he said. But if you thought that you were sitting across from death and that death had come for you,